If you go out to where the House of Blue Lights once stood now, all you will find is a vibrant nature preserve, with a paved path winding through the trees. It stretches back a good ways, pacing I-465 without ever really letting any runners or hikers see the busy interstate, though you will always be able to hear it if the path takes you east enough. There's nothing there now but trees, bushes, poison oak, and far too many spiders these days. But if you look closer, in certain areas, and leave the paved path for the dirt trails, made by the wandering feet of the curious, you can find the remains of the house that is still one of the most well-known urban legends in Indianapolis, Indiana. Just off the main path, you can find the concrete foundation of the mansion that had once been there, being steadily buried by a constant creep of grass and dirt. Buried in dirt and ivy throughout the reserve, you can find some of the glass bricks with lighted wiring in them that had made the place so infamous. Some people have even claimed to find shards of the fine china plates or scraps of the inside walls here and there. When I first moved to Indianapolis, one of the first stories I ever heard about from my classmates was the story of the House of Blue Lights. Given that it was the 5th grade, the stories varied a lot depending on who told it, and sometimes even what time of the day it was told. But as a lover of horror stories, I was persistent enough to put together an outline of it all my first day. The house was actually a mansion owned by a rich man who lived off of Fall Creek. I wasn't exactly sure where that was at the time, but I was assured that it was close. The rich man had lived there with a beautiful wife, and they had been so very happy there that I knew the story was going to end in tragedy even before another breath could be taken. The wife died, of course. An accident of some kind, or maybe even murder. No one was really sure how she died. They just knew that she did in fact die, and her husband was distraught beyond all reason. He mourned for her, but when it came time to bury her, he refused. He couldn't bear to be apart from his beautiful wife at all. So he used his money to fly in the best embalmers he could find. He paid these men to make sure she would never decay, and then built a glass coffin for her. He added on a new room to their home just for her. It was a large room, with glass walls so that they could both continue to live on the grounds they had so loved. In honor of her memory, the man put up blue lights all around the house, because blue had always been her favorite color. He had Christmas lights strung outside the home, and wrapped in the branches of trees near the house. But in the specially constructed room, he had the lights put into the glass walls. No light but the blue-tinted bulbs ever lit that room. Some of the kids I talked to were bold enough to say that the blue lights had given the woman a lifelike appearance, making her appear to only be sleeping, a fiction her husband preferred over reality. He was more than a little insane after that, everyone agreed. He talked as if she were still alive to friends, and sat up with her deep into the night just to talk about the day. People even said he became a crazy cat man and started burying dead cats on his property by the hundreds, erecting tiny white gravestones for each one. One girl, who whispered her story to me in a fearful voice, swore that the man was sacrificing the cats, trying to work some black magic to bring his wife back. But she was the only one who ever hinted that magic was involved in this story at all. The story, with little asides that differed from person to person, all became one singular story at the end here. Everyone could agree with these facts, at least. It was said that going up to the House of Blue Lights was a favorite dare for high school kids. They would dare each other to go out to Fall Creek at night, park off to the side of the road, and then creep in through the woods to see the fabled house. Those who were really brave were then dared to go around the back where a large swimming pool was. From there, it was said, you could see the bright glow of blue light from the glass room. And if you dared, you could sneak up to it and peek inside, to see the man sitting still in a chair next to the clear coffin of his wife. an event that happened so often that the man became angry of trespassers, apparently. As all the stories go on to say that he installed fences around his home and bought guard dogs. Towards the end of his life, some said, he took to sitting up all night with a shotgun, watching not his dead wife, but the woods around his home, looking for the slinking shadows of trespassers come to gawk at her coffin. Those who managed to get over the fence were often chased off by a pack of snarling dogs, or the shots of the man's rifle as he chased them. I met a few kids who had older siblings who swore they knew someone who had made it out of that alive. Barely. No one ever talked about the people who didn't make it past the dogs or shotgun, though. But they all wondered if cats were the only thing buried in the cemetery on the property. These are all old stories. Very old ones. It wasn't until recently that I started looking at the facts of the story and realized no kid I ever talked to could have seen it, and neither could their older siblings have either. The house had been torn down in the 70s, and the land turned over to the city as part of the rich man's will. His name had been Skiles Test, and he had been a crazy old cat man, who did in fact bury some 200+ cats on his property over the years, but only when they died naturally. He did often sit up at nights with a shotgun and a few dogs, but only to chase out the stupidly curious kids who had, by the time of his death in the mid-60s, grown from amusing gawkers into potentially dangerous trespassers. Ones who thought nothing of skinny dipping in the pool, throwing small kittens into the dog cages, breaking into the house to help themselves to food, or even ramming the 9-foot-tall gate down with their cars to get in. It was only after his death in 1964 that the news came out that Test had been married 3 times in his life, and all 3 of those women had outlived him. The story of the House of Blue Lights is strangely haunting, and lives on well beyond the house and the man who inspired it are gone. The truth of Test's life did very little to stop the urban legend from being spread, and the years that have passed haven't faded the details either. People still go to the House of Blue Lights at night, though this time they park in a small lot at the start of a well-paved trail instead of the side of the road. They go up a gently inclining hill until they come to the remnants of the house's foundation, and from there they go off onto dirt paths, occasionally coming across a remnant of some older building. When they get back to where the pool would have once been, at night some people still claim that they can see the ghostly image of blue lights, floating around like lost souls, remembering the house that had once stood there. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you did enjoy this urban legend. If you like this story, hit that like button. Consider sharing and subscribing to the channel to be alerted to new uploads. If you'd like to see something specific on my channel, leave a comment below and I will look into it. Good night, everyone.